Peace. How y'all doing? This is ZaZa Ali. What's good? Hope you are doing well. I am doing good. I just am on the tail end of recovering from a cold, so you might hear that in my voice. And then I just did another video talking for an hour, so my throat, my sound kind of sounds a little bit distorted to me. But anyway, peace and love. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health and mind, health, spirit, and mind, actually. I'm doing great. I wanted to tell you guys about a workshop that I have coming up Sunday, August the 25th at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And just talk specifically about one of the things that we're going to talk about when it comes to relationships. I have been monitoring, the Q&As that I do and the emails and the inboxes that I get, the things that are, stressing and worrying people or things that people want to talk about or focus specifically. And one of the biggest things, if not the biggest things, is relationships and negative relationships and behavioral patterns in relationships, dealing with a narcissist, baby daddy, baby mama drama, or trying to figure out why you keep attracting the same type of experience in different people. So that's what this particular workshop is about. The actual title is Recognizing Yourself Through Relationship Patterns. And the specific things that we're going to talk about, which the one thing I'm going to talk about specifically today is vibrating towards abuse. And then we're going to talk about low self-esteem, which is a form of self-hate. Chaos and uncontrolled emotions, and beyond victimhood and into understanding. I have these, the flyers on my social media pages. You can you can find them there. Also, I'll put the link in the description for you to be able to access it immediately. This workshop is for the first 10 people, $19.95, and then for everyone thereafter, $29.95. And here's what it's going to entail. There will be introductory worksheets as well as an introduction video from me that you will receive once you sign up. So there'll be homework out the gate, a sort of self-discovery process for you in how you look at relationships, how you vibrate or resonate with the opposite sex or the man or the woman that you are involved with or that you were involved with or that you want to be involved with. There will also be some recommended videos that will come along with that during the process of the ongoing time frame until we lead up to the workshop. And then the workshop on the 25th is going to be a 1.5 hour presentation by me, where I'm going to be specifically talking about the subjects that we talked about, and then a live Q&A, a 30-minute Q&A. So you can, if you have a specific situation, like I'm just coming out of a divorce, or I'm in a relationship that I don't know how to get out of, et cetera, et cetera. If you have a specific subject that you want me to specifically address, you can send your question ahead of time so that I have time to read it and kind of, conceptualize, your perspective and what you're going through and address it to you directly in a live capacity. But there will be a 30-minute Q&A live at that time. So if you want information on that, click the description below and join the conversation and go ahead and sign up. So vibrating towards abuse, that is an intriguing concept. And when it came in my head, I immediately wrote it down. Because this is, this topic, it comes up a lot. People send me, very traumatic experiences or questions about their lives. And my take on relationships, not just in, intimate love relationships, marriage or boyfriend, girlfriend, man and woman, but in, business relationships, work relationships, interpersonal relationships in general, family members, etc. It's always the same thing. What you are vibrating from within resonates and attracts certain circumstances and certain experiences to you without. And so that can mean everything from, you're in a very low vibration, depressed state of mind. And so you attract, a physically abusive man or an emotionally abusive woman. And it can also be as simple as you living in the house with your partner. And because you're going through some inner turmoil, it's causing conflict between the two of you, where simple communication, simple conversations now become major drawn out, fights or battles, because you have not yet learned how to fine tune your vibration and to take self accountability for yourself. So Self-accountability and blame are two totally different frequencies, right? When you are in blame mode, you are constantly focused on the other person and how they affect you, what they do to make you mad, how they hurt you, how they wronged you, etc., etc. When you are in self-accountability mode, you are looking within yourself and trying to figure out or ascertain or focused on what it is that you were vibrating, what you were thinking, and what you were living and exhibiting in your behavior in order to attract certain experiences to you. And that goes from the smallest simple experiences, a basic conversation on a train, to deeper and more traumatic experiences, like abusive relationships. Now that's a multi-layered conversation, because I know that people have traumatic experiences, and I don't just want to explain that away as you attracted a violent man because you had low self-esteem. It's deeper than that, right? I don't want to try to minimize the severity of those conditions and those circumstances, but when it all boils down to it, when you pull back the layers and start to look at this from a spiritual lens, there's always a deeper, more resolute explanation that will help you find peace if that's what you're actually seeking. So blame and self-accountability are two different frequencies. That's one thing that we're going to break down and talk about in the workshop. But vibrating towards low self-esteem. So when we talk about intuition, right, and this is, intuition is considered as the woman's superpower, so to speak. From women, men tend to look at intuition from a woman's perspective as from a negative perspective, expecting women, and this sometimes comes from us as women, imposing or projecting negative thoughts or negative expectations on men, right? Sometimes it's warranted and sometimes it's not. A lot of times the energy that women project on men as far as what we expect from them comes from our experience in previous relationships, right? But, excuse me. The actual definition for intuition, it's a noun, the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning, and a thing that one knows or considers likely from instructive feeling rather than conscious reasoning. The reason I bring intuition up is because I know, and if you really sit back and analyze yourself, if you've been in any dysfunctional relationship, if you've been in or multiple dysfunctional relationships, or even relationships that just didn't work out when it was all said and done, there were times when our intuition peaked and something in our minds and in our hearts and in our spirits told us that this relationship is either not going to serve you well, or this person is not the person that you're meant to be with, and maybe you should pivot into a friend type of relationship opposed to intimacy, or this is going to go bad, get out while you can. I know as a woman, when I look back at the trajectory of my relationships, there were times when the nature of this person that I was dealing with, or the nature of the relationship and what it would eventually become, stood out to me in very clear, in no uncertain terms. A message came up in my spirit or in my mind. So, as a culture, we tend to talk about emotions from a negative perspective. Stop being so emotional, or you're being too emotional. Intuition is a guidance counselor, so to speak, that is a derivative of emotion. Being able to feel when something is off, that gut feeling, right? So particularly for women, we have a tendency to deny our intuition. And then the intuition gets perverted, because once you go through 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 negative relationships where you have really bad experiences, now your intuition is only nudging you when it feels like something bad is about to happen. Intuition is a twofold aspect of your character and your emotions. You should have intuition about when good things are going to happen for you, when good people are coming into your space, when someone means you well. And you should also have intuition about harm coming to you or someone that doesn't mean you well. So if your intuition is only becomes a factor when something negative is about to happen. Oh, I think he's cheating on me. Oh, I think he's, not really where he's supposed to be. Though when your intuition is only prevalent when it comes to negative things, then that means that your intuition is no longer balanced or serving you well in its fullness, because you should also have intuition about things that are going to be positive or that are going to serve you well. In that kind of situation, then you have to start fine tuning this idea of intuition and start to use your mental capacity a little bit more in your logic and reasoning, so you can figure out if you are just spazzing out for no reason, or if you actually have a valid reason in order to be feeling and thinking the way that you're feeling. And a lot of that comes from, particularly for women, a lot of us don't know how to be alone. So we jump from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship, and we never take time to actually stop and deal with the lessons that we learn from those relationships. Why did I attract this experience? What was this supposed to teach me? How did this person benefit my life? And how did I benefit this person's life? It's not just, oh, I spent 3 years with this man and he dragged me through the mud and it was a waste of my time. Stop. Evaluate yourself, evaluate the lessons. And then also, if I gave him 3 years, he gave me 3 years too. So how did my time and energy and experience benefit this man or this woman, right? This is the concept of being balanced and taking self-accountability and not just focusing on the other person for the good, the bad, and the ugly, but also internally, what value did I bring to this person's life? How did I elevate his consciousness? How did I elevate her consciousness? How did I serve her well? And beyond just, I bought her a house and now I don't have the house anymore. Once you get into the learning phase and the self-accountability phase, yes, the material things are a part of it, but more importantly, the spiritual and emotional and mental lessons that come from those relationships. So, intuition, something we're going to be talking about. And then if you get involved in a relationship that is purely based on sex, right? Up front, there's no mental nor emotional or spiritual connection or attachment in this relationship. You guys just started out and there was purely a physical connection between the two of you. So maybe you had casual sex or a one night stand, or you had a few dates and then, things got heated and next thing you know, it's on and popping. But there's no substantive rooted nature in the relationship that's organic and healthy, i.e., we've got a strong mental attachment. We see the world the same way. Maybe we have the same spiritual views, maybe religious bond, or some sort of emotional attachment, learning about the trials and tribulations of one another and seeing the fullness of this human being who is a mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical being. If you are only sexually attracted or only bonding based on a sexual relationship, that is a very limited element to who this person actually is. You are vibrating towards abuse because you are a mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical being. If the nature of a relationship and spiritual and sexual connections and relationships is a very deep and heavy topic, and we're going to touch on that briefly. I'm actually putting together a short ebook about this because when you give yourself to someone sexually, we have this casual sex, oh, it was just a fling, or I hit it and quit it, jump off type of connotation when it comes to sex. But there is a very deep spiritual nature of that relationship and transference of energy, that happens. Not just the semen and orgasms, and the fluids, the fluids that are exchanged. The sweat, right, is also a fluid exchange, but an energetic exchange. Imagine if you're going into the DMV and you're sitting next to somebody who is boiling, steaming mad. You can literally feel that energy, and you probably will leave with some of that energy seeping in your spirit. Imagine if you are actually laying down with someone who has a very low vibration, negative, possibly even demonic energy or essence about themselves. Now, it's all good when they're trying to woo you, when you are just getting to know each other and you're in the opening phase of the relationship and everybody's just happy and giddy off of the sexual connotation that's happening. But once you start to take the relationship into a sexual connotation, now there's a different level of energy, mental, emotional, spiritual energy that is transferring, right? when we talk about spirituality, we're not only talking about the loving, angelic, healthy, organic essence. We are spiritual beings. So even when you are exuding the worst part of yourself, that negative energy, that low vibration, that sabotage, that, internal emotional abuse, that is a reflection of your spiritual being or your lower self. So once you take a relationship from getting to know one another and don't really fine tune that or give that any sort of real substantive premise, and you take that into the sexual realm, now you are moving towards and vibrating towards abuse. And I'm not just talking about physical abuse. And this is in those relationships that go ongoing. Now you'll note that men have a tendency, in particular, we're now moving in a climate where women are, talking about songs and embracing this idea, which is very unhealthy, specifically for women. Where once they have sex with you, the attraction is lost, or the intensity or the fire or the passion or the interest starts to waver because they've already received you sexually. That in itself is a lesson. Because if the man did not take time to mentally, emotionally, and spiritually stimulate you and get to know you, but the only thing he wanted from you was sex, and after sex there's no interest, then that means that he was never really fully interested in the fullness of you anyway. So the relationship was bound to self-destruct, or to only be a learning lesson for you, opposed to something that's going to have an actual substantive place in your life. So sometimes those relationships fizzle out and don't turn into anything. Sometimes those relationships produce children. And I know people that have had one night stands or casual sex or involved with somebody for 1 to 2 to 3 months or even a year. And then the relationship doesn't pan out to be anything, but now you've produced a child that was born not out of love, not out of healthy, organic connection, not out of spiritual and mental and emotional stability, but out of a sexual connection or lack of self-love, or I just want him to validate me or to, see me or to feel me or to see how good of a woman that I am. Those are layers and levels of low self-esteem as well as lack of self-love, right? So when you produce a child in that type of environment, it's not, then it becomes the question about environment, nature versus nurture, right? There's a real question and a conversation to be had about that, because that sperm coming from that maybe low vibration, maybe energetically inferior, or maybe inferior is not the right word, low energy, low frequency, no real attachment on a deeper substantive level, right? That's the seed that sperm is coming from, and connecting with an egg or a womb that is vibrating on that same frequency. So those two frequencies merge, and now the life that you have produced comes out into the world resonating based on that frequency. Now there's levels and layers to that. I won't get too deep into that, but that's what we're going to be talking about in this particular workshop, taking full accountability and self-analysis for what you were vibrating when you attracted those relationships, what you're vibrating and how you see men or how you see women now, which is going to write prophecy, so to speak, of the type of relationships that are coming into your future, and really going from the blame frequency or pointing the finger at the other person or people that you've been in relationships with, and going into self-accountability mode so that you can elevate your consciousness, elevate the way you see relationships, and fine-tune how you view and see yourself so you don't attract those same patterns. Learn how to be alone, learn how to self-analyze, learn how to feel good about yourself and good about your life, and then you will attract a compatible frequency and energy in another person. ZaZaAli.com is my website. You can go to my site there, or you can click the link below for the description about the full synopsis of the workshop. Again, it's $19.95 for the first 10 people and $29.95 thereafter. All the people who write me and who have very dysfunctional patterns in relationships, I'm doing this workshop specifically for you. So click the link below and go ahead and sign up. Peace and love.